My greetings to all. Today's mini grammar tutorial is a continuation of our previous concept on sentence structuring. This is one of the most important, vital, critical concepts in English because sentence structuring has to do with communication and writing. Now, if you remember, we said in a previous tutorial that sentences in English come in two types. Either sentences that contain one verb only, or sentences that contain two or more verbs only. And actually, we still have another type, which is going to be included in a different tutorial, which is sentences that could contain three or even more. But in this case, we're going to deal only with today, actually. We're going to deal with sentences that contain only one verb. So sentences either come as one verb sentences or two or more verb sentences. Now, this has to do with tenses, as you can tell. And because we are referring to sentences which contain one verb or two verbs, so we have two agreements. The first one is between the subject, the doer of the action, okay, the agent, and the verb, the action. And the second agreement is actually between the first helping verb and the main verb. But bear in mind that we talked in a previous tutorial that some auxiliary verbs or helping verbs can be used as main verbs. Okay. Now today in this tutorial we're going to deal with sentences that contain one verb only. Okay. Okay. Now an important note. This is very, very important. Sentences which have only one verb are mainly about the present simple and the past simple. So a sentence may have one verb only in the case of two tenses, the present simple and the past simple. And in this case, the main agreement is going to be only between the subject and the only verb. You see, the only verb that follows. Now, remember that we said something very important. We said that helping verbs can be used as main verbs if they are the only verbs in the sentence. And main verbs are main verbs because they are actually the only verbs in the sentence. But only this applies when we talk about sentences that are used in the present simple or in the past simple only. As for the other tenses, now we have two tenses here. We still have 10 more tenses. In the other 10 more tenses, there are always two or more or three or four verbs. Now, this kind of relation will be discussed with regard to singular, plural, present, and past. If you remember, we said that we have either present singular or present plural. And this has to do with the fact that, if you remember, we said that a subject, the doer of the action, the agent, if it does not contain an S, the verb should end with an S. As easy as that. Let me include more here. If you remember, we said also man, okay, woman, and child. All these are singular nouns. By meaning, by structure, by anything you name it, you don't contain an S. So their verb should contain an S. It's an equation. Think of it as electrical equation, plus and minus. Okay? If the subject does not end or meaningfully end with an S, so the verb should end with an S, as you can see. Regardless whether we are dealing with main verbs or helping verbs which are used as main verbs. I'm going to show you later on in the following examples, okay? Now, moreover, present plural, Samir and Selma, the boys, as you can see, the boys is plural compared to the boy, which is singular. Girls is plural compared to girl, which is singular. They, we, and you refer to plural, And if I add more, men, okay, women, and guess what? Children, okay? All these are also plural, even if they don't end with an S because their meaning is plural. Okay, their meaning is plural. Boys, okay, now we call that direct plural. This is indirect plural. But still, anyone can guess the meaning. Men, women, children, we, they, you. Okay, you has a special case, but in many cases it refers to plural. So again, an equation. The subject contains an S. So the verb should not contain an S. Again, regardless whether the verb is main or helping verbs which are used as main verbs. Now, what about the past singular and the plural past? Again, let me show you something. We said, again, in the past tutorial, only was and were, okay, can create a bit of confusion because was goes with singular while were goes with plural simply because was ends with an S and were doesn't end with an S. As easy as that. Now, as for the remaining verbs, regardless whether they are main or helping verbs, they are all used with singular and plural the same. Now, why are they past and not present? We said verbs that end with a D, like played here, or did, okay, or had, all these verbs, regardless whether they are main verbs or helping verbs, end with a D or start with a W. Start with a W. In this case, we refer to the past. Okay? As easy as that. The remaining verbs, because they don't end with a D or start with a W, are present. So easy. So direct. Again, verbs that end with a D or starts with a W are past, maybe with the exception of the modal verb will. Okay? Now let's look down at the following examples. Samir studies, that's present. Okay? Studied in the past, as easy as that. You don't have to trouble yourself too much. Studied ends with a D, so it's in the past. Okay, you may not apply this rule overall, but in this case, yes, it does. Writes, emails, wrote, is and was, has, had, and finally does and did. So again, as you can see, all these are used either in the present or in the past. As easy as that. Let me just take this up a bit. Look at, I can show you a clearer picture. Okay. Now, these sentences, in these sentences, there are main verbs, while in the following three pairs of sentences, I have used the helping verbs as main verbs. Now, more examples. Okay. More examples. Salim owns. Now, owns ends with an S because simply Salim actually is singular, while friends is plural. So we can't have two S's, by the way. Just think of it this way. Think of it this way. You can't have two S's. You can have only one. So now, own. Salim drives, while my friends drive. So you can't have two S's, only one. Salim started, went, and went. Again, if you remember, we said with regard to these verbs, it doesn't matter whether we start with a singular or a plural subject. Only in the case of was and were. Other than that, when it comes to the past simple verb 2, all verbs are the same. They all go with singular or plural subjects. Okay? Went. Now, again, now these sentences we have used only main verbs. Now, but in the following sentences, what we are going to use is that we are going to use auxiliary verbs as main verbs. Salim has, singular. The employees have, because we have plural subject. Salim is singular. Layla and Selma, plural, are. The streets, plural, are. Salim does. Salim is singular. Students, plural, therefore we should have do. Now, with regard to the past simple, Ryan, singular, was. The kids, plural, were. Selma, the workers, both are singular and plural, and did goes with both singular and plural. Again, the employees had and I had, again, singular and plural, they all go the same. Now, with regard to the practice, this is an easy one, by the way. I would like you to follow with me. Now, I should like draw your attention to the fact that whenever you read a sentence, always read it till the end and look for clues. Now, as in this case here, okay, as in this case also every week. So before start answering, look for clues. Now, the angry employees yesterday is in the past, so we should use drove. The angry workers is plural, so again, and it doesn't have any indication to the past, so we should use it in the present. The workers protest. The manager, every week, this indicates the present, so studies. Workers, last week indicates the past, protested. The report, singular, looks. Employees, plural, leave. Now, executive manager, singular, does. Car, singular, is. One of the workers, singular, has. Okay? Now, Ali, again singular, comes. Someone, singular, is. Workmates, plural, don't. Legs, plural, hurt. Families, plural, need. And we is also plural, pray. And these are the answer. Thank you for being with me today. It was a bit long tutorial because it's a very important tutorial as it contains a very important concept. Our next tutorial is going to be about two verb sentences. Thank you very much for being with me today.